Happy 2026, everybody. This is Colin McCallin, along with my partner, Russell Hebets. Russ, how are you?
I'm doing well. Hello, everyone out there.
And we are back for another season, another episode, another year.
Brand new year.
Is This Legal? Apologies to our faithful listeners who had to put up with a little bit of a delay on our end. With the holidays and work and life and everything like that, we just have not had the opportunity to put together a truly quality podcast that our listeners have come to expect. I mean, we could put out a podcast any day of the week, Russ, but would it be any good? It probably would, because we are pretty awesome. I mean, but we want to deliver on quality, don't we?
It hurt us more than it hurt you.
Yes.
So, sorry.
But welcome back. We are back indeed and plan on continuing on with the podcast this year. So today, we're going to talk about two cases. We've got this is definitely going to be a true crime day. We're going to be talking about Luigi Mangione, the fella. We've done a couple podcast episodes on him. Luigi is accused of murdering the United Healthcare CEO, Brian Thompson, by shooting him in the middle of the street in Manhattan. We're going to talk about the state and federal charges and some updates that we have there, Russ.
Right.
And we're also going to talk about Timothy Busfield, the actor who has been in the news this week, not for good reasons. He is facing some pretty severe allegations of child sexual assault out of New Mexico. We're going to get into that case on the second half of the podcast. Probably need to note that this might be an episode where viewer discretion is advised. We know a lot of kids listen to this episode. Hi, kids out there. Sit this one out. Maybe we'll pick you up on the next one. So, Russ, should we get into it? Should we start with our friend, Mr. Mangione?
Yeah, let's start with Luigi. So we've done a couple of updates, or we did an original podcast for you guys,
Yep.
And then we just did an update on episode 146 where, some things started to break in Luigi's favor.
Yeah.
This is when on the state side, because he's facing state and federal charges, on the state side, the judge dismissed those state terrorism charges, which left just that second-degree murder in the state of New York. So since then, he's kind of continued his momentum a little bit with having some things break his way. So we'll break this into the state case and the federal case, because these are happening at the same time. He's got two separate cases. If you're wondering about double jeopardy, go listen to our last update on it, because we talked about that in some detail then. But just at the final week of 2025, there was a 2+ week suppression hearing in his state case that covered, remember that backpack that was found with him at the scene when he was arrested in that
restaurant? It was a restaurant or something?
It was a McDonald's.
That's right.
Mickey D's.
That's right. The McDonald's worker called him.
I'm pretty sure the Hamburglar is the one who fingered him. He's like that guy right there. I know, he's my kind of guy.
The hamburger needed a fall guy. He always gets away with it. Right. Okay, so Russ, let's zero in on this for a second. We're talking about a backpack that he had on his possession. So what's he saying about that? What is Luigi saying about that backpack?
Yeah, so that backpack was under his chair. And if you recall, that backpack had the murder weapon that matched the firings, the casings, the gun that shot that CEO. Right. And it had a notebook that, prosecutors are calling a manifesto, right, but it was at least notes about his thoughts on healthcare in America and why he thought, something had to happen.
Right. Definitely incriminating information.
Incredibly incriminating. So here's what his attorneys are saying. Hey, the cops at the scene, they had an opportunity to secure that backpack and go get a warrant. We've talked about this all the time. Fourth Amendment, right? The Fourth Amendment to the U.S. Constitution protects anyone in the U.S. from illegal searches and seizures. That includes searches of personal property. Right. You generally need what?
You need a warrant.
You need a warrant, okay. Exactly.
So you need a warrant, of course, is basically where a police officer or detective swears to information that says, hey, we have all of this information, and they make this statement to a judge, usually by affidavit,
Right.
and they say, hey, we want to search this person, and we need permission to do that. And the judge will issue a warrant, which is required in order to do a search and seizure of property. Now, Russ, there are plenty of exceptions to the warrant requirement, and we should probably talk about those, because is a warrant needed in every single case in order to take and seize someone's belongings, especially those of a murder suspect?
A warrant is not needed in every single case. As you said, there are exceptions
Right.
to the warrant requirement, and this is kind of built up over just decades and decades of case law.
Right.
So the one that the prosecution is going to lean on most heavily, and the one that is going to be the one that is likely going to be how this case is ruled on, is the search incident to arrest.
Right. So what does that mean at its most fundamental form, Russ? What does that allow for?
So when the police are arresting someone, so you have to have probable cause to arrest them, right? But once you have an ability to arrest someone, you have probable cause, you are allowed to search their property incident to that arrest. And the main rationale for that, Colin, is officer safety, right? You don't want them to have a gun, right? Which during the arrest they have within their reach. They can pull out, they can shoot a cop. You're going to protect law enforcement in these situations, right? And so that is the biggest argument that the prosecution says, hey, judge, listen, this is not a violation of the Fourth Amendment because this exception applies. And they, Colin, called 20 different witnesses. Like, this was an involved hearing.
And that makes sense, because a lot of people were present during his apprehension. So all of those people need to give testimony about how everything went down. They need to be able to give testimony about how they approached Mr. Mangione, about what commands they directed him,
Right.
you know, what he said in response to anything they said. I mean, Russ, one of the exceptions to the warrant requirement is consent. That's another exception.
Sure.
Did Mr. Mangione, for example, this is one thing I've been thinking about, did he say anything that would allow law enforcement to believe that they had consent to take these items? I mean, it could have been like if the officer said, "Is this yours?" and he said, "Yeah, you can take it," or something like that. That might be enough.
Yeah, it'd have to be consent to, like, do you mind if I take a look in here?
Right.
Right. And he said, yes, that is enough.
Right.
Right. Now we haven't seen that happen. They haven't released the body cam, so we don't
Right.
know exactly what was said, what wasn't said. But I'll tell you, this is not the only thing that the defense raised with the suppression issue. They also said that the Altoona Police Department in Pennsylvania didn't handle the evidence properly. They didn't follow their proper protocols.
Right. So if I can just supplement what you just said to set it up, I think what you're saying is, even if they were justified in searching incident to arrest, they didn't follow their own police procedures to conduct that search in the appropriate way. Is that kind of what they're saying?
That's another thing they're saying.
All right.
So in a situation like that, depending on how egregious those violations are, then you're talking about the police, the defense saying, hey, judge, we need a sanction on law enforcement because they're just violating their policies, they're violating people's rights, and you need to teach them a lesson. And the best way to teach them a lesson is to suppress the evidence.
That's right.
Right? So there's a couple different arguments that the defense is making. And, you know, the fact that it was I think there were 8 days of testimony with 20 witnesses, like, this isn't just a flash in the pan.
Yeah, but I also, I am not terribly concerned that a judge is going to throw the case out on this basis, to be honest with you, Russ. I mean, first of all, you know, what could the district attorneys also argue here? I think there's also something, there's this theory called inevitable discovery.
That's their fallback.
Yeah, this is kind of a catch-all, and prosecutors love to argue this, but they basically say, judge, even if there was a violation, even if there was a necessity to get a warrant, we were going to find these items anyway.
Right.
These items weren't going to go anywhere. If we arrested him, presumably he would have had to have left this backpack behind in a public place, which we could have taken at that point. Like, he had nothing, he didn't have any way of preventing law enforcement from getting access to these items, especially when they're literally I think you can argue they're basically on his person.
Yeah, I think the testimony was they were right under his chair. I think one of the officers was asked that question, like, was it in control and possession of Mr. Mangione? And the cop, being a smartass, said, well, it didn't just magically appear there.
Right.
And so, but going back to your inevitable discovery, like, their argument is, hey, even if we, didn't search it right then, we could have waited, we could have gotten a warrant, or we could have just taken it as his personal property. And if you take it with him as his personal property, you get to inventory it anyway, because you're making sure that you're not having $200 walk away when he's in custody.
The old inventory search.
We
see that all the time with cars.
Yeah.
But coming back again to the McDonald's too, it matters very much, Russ, that Luigi Mangione wasn't in his home when he was contacted.
Less
It matters that he wasn't in his car where he had that backpack.
Yep.
You have a little bit more expectation of privacy in those situations.
Right.
Here, he's in a public place, public restaurant. Anyone can walk in or out. I think that strengthens the officer safety argument, especially given the fact that they found a weapon on him. I mean, what are we supposed to do, Judge? We're supposed to just sit there in a parking lot and let this guy who's wanted for murder, who we know might be armed, while waiting for a warrant? Which brings me to exigency, Russ. I mean, isn't there a way that the feds could argue, hey, we had to do this. This guy was too dangerous. He was too much of a threat. He was going to get away. We had to act.
So here, that all comes down to, though, them knowing that at the time, right? And even everything we've said so far is predicated upon them having probable cause to arrest him. Because if they don't have probable cause to arrest him at the time they search, all of these go out of the window. Because then, I mean, law enforcement cannot just come search someone's stuff if they don't have at least
I think they had
probable
PC,
cause.
though, don't you think? I mean, given what we know, we knew that his images are all over the place. His whereabouts, he's reported missing by his mom.
I mean, his images are all over the place. Like, he's sitting in there wearing a face mask and a hat.
He's on camera shooting someone, Russ.
But it's they just see his eyes at that point. They don't have him identified.
So you don't think they had probable cause when they went up to him? You don't think they had probable cause to arrest him?
Here's what they had probable cause of, and here's why I think they're going to win. When they went up and talked to him, he gave them a fake ID.
Right.
And
we haven't even talked about that yet. That's so significant.
That's so significant, because without that, I think that all of this evidence gets thrown out. I think that they don't know that it's the same person at that point in time. They're talking about someone IDing him based on his eyes and eyebrows, because he's wearing a hat, he's wearing a face mask, you don't see his whole face. But once he gave that fake ID, the police said, we're going to arrest you for forgery. Because this is a fake ID. Now they have him in custody. They have a lawful reason to arrest him. Now they can search incident to arrest.
Okay.
So that's what I think is going to save the state.
Yeah, I think this is going to be fine. I think there's a few different things that the state can do to hang on to this. So, Russ, that's the state case. We're waiting for rulings on this stuff, right?
We are waiting on rulings for this stuff. This happened at the end of last year. Haven't had rulings yet, so the judge is clearly taking his time and going to come out with a ruling sometime soon.
Okay. How about the federal case? What's going on with that case, Russ?
So
totally separate charges, totally separate jurisdiction. What are we doing?
Based on the same facts, but yes. So here's where we are on the federal case. The judge initially, the same arguments were brought up, right? The same suppression issues were brought up on the federal side as on the state side. The federal judge initially said, you know what? I don't even need to have an evidentiary hearing on this. I'm just going to rule on it based on the motions filed by the parties. That was last Friday. This Monday, so just a couple of days ago, the judge said, you know what? I have reconsidered. I'm actually going to allow a hearing on this suppression issue. That alone, Colin, is a win for Luigi. Just getting the judge to have a hearing on it.
I got to be honest, I'm curious about that. I wonder if she thought about it over the weekend. maybe there's a lot of people paying attention to
Right.
this case. Maybe I should just go ahead and give this guy his hearing on this issue.
Yeah, she just wants to make sure she's dotting her I's,
Yeah.
crossing her T's, and covering her
Which is
AS.
absolutely the right move, by the way. I think that when you're talking about making a ruling about a constitutional motion, and when I say constitutional motion, I'm saying you're raising the belief that your constitutional rights under the Fourth Amendment, under the Fifth Amendment, under the Sixth Amendment, you're facing a constitutional rights violation.
Yeah.
That requires a judge to hear evidence and make decisions because, again, these things are constitutional in nature. They're very important. And it makes sense that a judge should actually sit down and, maybe I should hear some evidence about this and make a decision and do a little work today.
Especially when it's a potential death penalty case, which this is on the federal side. New York abolished their death penalty 2004, but the feds are going for it, and we're going to talk about that in a minute. But first, I want to just kind of tie a bow on the hearing. She's not allowing a full-blown hearing like the state allowed. She basically, the only issue it looks like she's looking at is this: did they handle it properly? So I think she's saying, I have enough to rule on the Fourth Amendment, on the exigency. She basically said the prosecution needs to call someone from the Altoona Police Department. Doesn't even have to be someone who is at the scene, just someone who can testify as to their normal procedures with handling evidence. So that's what's going to happen at a hearing. That is, I believe, going to be on the 30th of this month, that hearing. That is potentially also when we're going to hear more on this death penalty issue.
Right. I think strategically, the defense team for the federal case, and again, to echo Russ's point, he's not facing death penalty at the state level. This is just the federal level. I think what the defense's strategy is trying to do is do anything they can to undercut the death penalty. I think they want to see if, as some sort of sanction, if they can find any violation as to how he was treated, they would love to remove that death penalty as an aggravator. That would really gut the state's case.
The Fed case, yeah. But they're also directly attacking the death penalty in the federal case. They filed motions asking the judge to take that off the table. And so here's just briefly what you need for a death penalty case. Under federal capital procedure, prosecutors have to identify specific aggravating factors. Examples are cruelty, multiple victims, risked bystanders. Mm-hmm. It has to be something that justifies seeking death rather than life imprisonment. Now, typically, the Department of Justice always, in the past, before this case, has sent any capital cases to what's called the Department of Justice Capital Review Committee. Okay, that is a group of career prosecutors who look at it and say, do these aggravating factors fit? And if so, we recommend we go for the death penalty. In this case, that did not happen at all.
We're going to bypass that, right? Said Pam Bondi.
Said
We
Pam
don't
Bondi.
need to do that. We're just going to announce that we're going for the death penalty.
That's exactly right.
I mean, I remember, I don't know, just off the top of my head, I know that decision was made very, very quickly.
Oh, yeah. Oh, it was very quickly. So Pam Bondi, kind of par for the course with the Department of Justice in this administration, says, nope, we're just going to go forward. That's what the right thing to do is, and that's what we're going to do. Mm-hmm. Now, they did name two of those factors. They said substantial planning and premeditation and grave risk of death to the others. That's what they used to justify it.
I don't know if I buy that third one, but
no,
go ahead.
Right. Yeah, because this was, and that's what the defense says.
Yeah.
There's no risk of others. This was
very,
very targeted.
This couldn't have been more specific.
Right, exactly. Yeah, if it was Luigi, which it probably was, but...
I guess the government can argue he has a terrible aim.
Right.
Anybody was...
Pretty targeted. If they are successful in getting this case to go to the death penalty phase, Colin, they still need, after a verdict, so they need a verdict, a guilty verdict, then they still need a jury to unanimously say, yes, we want to impose the death penalty.
Yeah, that decision is made by the jury. And honestly, that makes sense why these prosecutors would want to get together and vet cases like this to make sure that they have it.
Right.
And it kind of makes you wonder, in this case, if they have it. I'm not sure they do.
And
but
just last thing, if, like, he's gotten some wins, Luigi's gotten some wins, if somehow he gets that evidence suppressed in either the state or the federal case, then they no longer have the gun linking him to that shooting. They no longer have that manifesto. They're also trying to, by the way, suppress some statements.
I mean, they still have the video, and I still put a tremendous amount of importance on that. I mean, this is something that was captured on live. I mean, I think they might even be able to survive loss of the murder weapon in this case.
But then it comes down to identification,
Yeah.
right? They don't. So then, can they identify him?
I think the government believes they can, and they had a lot of surveillance following this guy. So I think this is going to be a nothing burger, and I think we're just going to be heading to trial.
We'll see. I mean, we'll see. Well, let's take our kind of mid-podcast break. Let's play a little Is This Legal? Then let's come back and talk a little Timothy Busfield and allegations of child sex assault.
Sounds terrible, but great at the same time.
Sounds interesting, right? But terrible for sure.
Right. All right. We'll be back to play a little Is This Legal? Ladies and gentlemen of America, are you ready to play Is This Legal?
Also, ladies and gentlemen of the world.
Yeah, not.
We're international, man.
Yeah, geez.
International.
We're globalists. Yeah, we're fans of the world.
Ladies and gentlemen,
wherever you guys are at.
Ladies and gentlemen of the universe.
Yes, everyone. Yeah, let's not forget the solar system.
Right,
and,
just jump straight to the big picture.
Exactly. All right. This is the Is This Legal segment of the show. This is the show within a show where we test your legal smarts. We're going to give you a hypothetical. I've got it drafted right here. And we're going to see if you know whether or not it's legal or not, essentially. So here we go. We're going to talk about our friend Jebediah.
Good old
Jebediah is always in trouble. We kind of need him to be for this segment.
We do.
And today is no exception. So here's what's going on with Jebediah this time. Jebediah, he had a couple of drinks at the Hitching Post Saloon, which he's known to do, but he was hanging out with ruthless outlaw Black Bart. That's a bad seed, that guy is.
He's a bad guy.
Black Bart convinced Jebediah to be a lookout for him while he conducted an armed robbery of the Northamptonshire Bank. And, he was a little down on his luck at that time, so Jebediah reluctantly agreed.
Yeah.
Bart went in and robbed the bank, grabbed some cash, and they fled out of town. But Officer Cornelius, he's no slouch. He caught up with them and arrested them both. All right. Now, Jebediah pleaded not guilty, and his case was set for trial. Now, the trial received a lot of publicity. I mean, it's a small town,
Right, sure.
And many people wanted to spectate, including members of Jebediah's family.
Okay.
Now, during jury selection, when they're bringing in all the juries in and figuring out who's going to sit at the case, the courtroom was very, very cramped with potential jurors. And so the judge ordered all of the spectators who were not potential jurors to be removed from the courtroom. The defense objected. Jebediah's lawyer objected, arguing that the removal of spectators violates Jebediah's right to a public trial.
Okay.
And the judge, noting the objection, he said, that's a good point. What we're going to do is we're going to put the spectators in another room, but we're going to hook up a virtual TV so that they can watch everything that's going on inside the courtroom.
Okay.
And that's exactly what happened.
Okay.
So, and then after jury selection was over, spectators were allowed to watch the remaining trial.
In the courtroom.
In the courtroom, yes.
Okay.
So Jebediah was convicted for what did I say? Armed robbery. Thank you.
Right.
And he's appealing now, Russell, saying that the judge's order kicking those spectators out violated his Sixth Amendment right to a public trial.
Constitutional right.
Yep. Of course, the state is disagreeing, saying, nope, first of all, that's ridiculous. No witnesses, no evidence was ever excluded. These are just spectators. And second of all, those folks were allowed to watch the proceedings. So the question, good listener, is this legal? Did the judge, was he allowed to issue that order? Or does Jebediah have a point here?
All right. So, I mean, we talked earlier in the podcast about how much deference constitutional issues get.
Yep,
right?
they do. Yeah.
That's core principles.
I definitely
of US,
said that word, Sixth Amendment to the Constitution.
To the Constitution. But, on the other hand, they got to watch it.
Yeah.
Right? Whew, this is...
Russ, before we give the answer, I know, and there's probably people out there listening who this might apply to you. There's court watchers out there. These are folks who are retired. These are hobbyists who just kind of like to watch trials and stuff like that.
Independently wealthy, maybe.
Unemployed, perhaps. Another one. That's another way of saying that. But yeah, they go and watch trials, and honestly, I've done a couple trials where I saw an old guy in the back of the courtroom, and I was like, "Hi." You go up and introduce yourself because who is this person?
Right.
And the guy's like, "Oh, I'm just chilling out. I'm just watching."
Just watching.
I mean, honestly, these days it's really easy because now you can do live streaming, right? I mean, we talked about a little bit in this hypothetical. You can actually live stream a lot of trials these days.
All right.
TV. That's all live streaming.
So the point of this is trials are public. So what do you guys say? Does Jebediah have a case, or people got to watch it? People only miss jury selection, and even that, they could watch it on TV. Is that it? Is that the end of it? Lock in your answers. Colin, what's the real answer?
The result on appeal should be, if case law is properly followed, Jebediah's conviction gets reversed, and he gets a brand new trial. Russ.
Wow.
This case law comes from SCOTUS. This is a Supreme Court case. Waller v. Georgia, Supreme Court of the United States, 1984.
Okay.
And they say that word public means what it says. It means public. If someone wants to physically attend court, they get to physically attend court. Now, the judge can limit certain things. We know witness sequestration can be something.
Right.
Witnesses can be kept out of the court if they're about to testify in the same proceeding.
And correct me if I'm wrong, but part of this is because part of the excluded people were Jebediah's family, who were there to show support for Jebediah.
Yes, although it really can be anybody. But the historical context, you're absolutely right. The defendant, he's the accused. He deserves to have support. He deserves to have people who can hear the evidence and provide him assistance. We want public trials. This is really one of those bedrock founding father things.
Yeah.
And so this opinion basically scolded the judge and said, look, we understand that you were trying to make this accommodation by making it virtual, but you can't step inside a computer. You can't be part of the proceeding if you're online virtually. So what the judge should have done is broken jury selection up into smaller groups or made available more seating. But yeah, huge situation. This is something, by the way, that was not really on my radar. I was looking for new topics, and this is one I kind of found out about. So we learned something together, Russ.
There we go.
Even us learned barristers. Or
with those with the powdered wigs even didn't know this.
I mean, I will say, once you put on this powdered wig or anything like it,
smarter.
you get 30% smarter. Like immediately.
I could feel it.
Oh my, where'd I put my keys? Russ. Jeez, I can't believe I did that again. All right, well, I think that'll do it for Is This Legal? We'll see you back next time. And if you're part of our podcast, we're going to get back to our regularly scheduled programming.
See you, everyone. Welcome back, everyone. Hopefully you did well on this week's episode of Is This Legal? We are jumping right back in to talk about kind of what mid-tier actor Timothy Busfield.
Like B- list?
I mean, he's maybe
C+?
B. Maybe he's a solid B. Like he's certainly not A-list.
You're not Tom Cruise. You're not Brad Pitt.
But I think this is someone you would recognize
if you saw him,
even if you couldn't place exactly what he was in.
He's a bad guy. Yeah.
Yeah, but this guy. So he's an actor. He's been in Field of Dreams. Is probably his biggest movie. He was on The West Wing. He was integral part of The Cleaning Lady.
Yeah.
Right? And that's kind of what led to the legal hot water that he's in right now.
Yeah, so Timothy Busfield. I think most people probably remember him from Field of Dreams. That's where I remember him. When's the last time you saw Field of Dreams, Russ?
It's been probably 20 years.
It's an all-time classic for me in my household.
You watch it annually?
Very quotable movie, I might add. Yeah. Oh, yeah? Well, your husband plowed under his corn and built a baseball field. The weirdo.
That's Timothy Busfield, right?
No,
it's not.
I wish not. Timothy Busfield. Ray, you're bankrupt.
Okay, right. I mean,
and then I got to say one more. No one's called me Moonlight Graham in over 50 years.
Oh, that's a pretty good James Earl Jones.
No, it's not James Earl Jones.
It is.
No, it's Burt Lancaster. Moonlight Graham.
Isn't
the
James,
doctor, the old doctor.
Isn't James Earl Jones in that?
Yeah, but
You're doing James Earl Jones's voice for this other guy. That's what I'm saying. So if you're gonna use James Earl Jones's voice, do a James Earl Jones quote.
Are you kidnapping me? Is that the deal here? You said your finger was a gun. I can go all day.
There you go. Wow,
Okay.
God, you do know it. I mean, the only one I know is this heaven? No, it's Iowa.
Right.
Iowa. I could have sworn this was heaven.
Great line, man. I mean, I'm about to tear up right now. So yeah. Anyway, Timothy Busfield was the jerk brother in that movie. You know, the Ray, you're bankrupt. He's the naysayer. Anyway, so he was also in The West Wing. You people might know him from that too. So yeah, let's get into it, Russ, because he's in deep trouble.
Yeah.
So all of this has happened. All of this has kind of gone down in the last week. But I guess let's go back a little bit. So he is accused of criminal contact with a minor, 2 counts, 2 separate victims, Russ, all right? And these are allegations out of the state of New Mexico. Now, as you just mentioned, he was the executive producer and sometimes director of a show called The Cleaning Lady. This was a drama that ran fairly recently from 2022 to 2025, 4 seasons. And like I said, he's very involved with the show, executive producer, kind of behind the scenes. And apparently, according to these allegations, this inappropriate touching involved a 7-year-old boy and an 8-year-old boy while they were on set. These allegations actually happened while they were on set. These actors referred to Timothy Busfield as Uncle Tim. Yeah. And they spent a lot of time with him. And when I say they, I'm including both these 2 boys as well as their parents. Their parents were apparently, guests of the set all the time. They spent time with the Busfield family. Timothy is married to Melissa Gilbert, who is also somewhat famous. I think she's more like C- list. So she was in Little House of the Prairie. She played Laura Ingalls Wilder.
She was A-list back in the day. Like for my parents, she would have been A-list.
Well, yeah, for your parents. Did you watch Little House on the Prairie?
When I was young, they did.
Yeah.
I did, yeah.
I mean, I remember kind of watching that show when I was probably 8 years old and thinking to myself, wow, this really sucks. Can we please watch The Dukes of Hazzard? That's kind of what I remember.
It's between those 2.
I remember Michael Landon, like he's a very handsome man, It's
such a good man.
Yeah, yeah. And so I don't really remember her. Anyway, I keep digressing. So he's married to her, but he and his wife Melissa Gilbert would apparently buy these kids Christmas presents. They were spending a lot of time.
So it was like friends of the family.
Yeah, and prosecutors are using the term grooming. They're saying that he was kind of using his power, his influence, and his character is like grooming behavior for these boys.
Yeah, and grooming is typical things that you would see in sex offenses, right? Especially when you have, like in Colorado, they would charge this as child sex abuse by someone in a position of trust.
That's exactly right.
Right, and that's someone who has some sort of just supervisory...
Coach, teacher, pastor, babysitter.
Exactly. Yeah. Someone who has responsibility for the child and commits a sex offense.
So in terms of how this allegation came out, so first of all, the behavior is alleged to have occurred over a period of time, Russ, so basically between 2022 and 2024, involving these 2 boys. Okay. Now, here's what happens. These 2 boys get written off of the show for the last season. All right, and Timothy Busfield is saying that might be some fuel as to why these allegations are coming. But anyway, after they're dismissed from the show, in November of 2024, one of the boys gets examined by a New Mexico physician, and essentially reports that he was sexually assaulted. This physician is a mandatory reporter. He reports it to the authorities. They begin an investigation. Okay. And that's essentially where we are here. Now,
I'll tell you that way that it became uncovered, I think takes a little wind out of the sail of the allegation that this was maybe in response or retribution for being written off the show.
I will say this, in one of the media reports that I read, the family might have gone to visit a law firm prior to going to the hospital for this examination. They might have been directed by this law firm to go to get an examination done. Now, that seems like prudent legal advice. I mean, if there's an allegation of this kind, that's what you want. You want the person interviewed and examined. Okay, and law enforcement did that. So when they're investigating child sexual assaults, they interview kids in special places. They don't bring them down to the police station, sit them in an interview room. They put them.
It's a room with crayons, and they can color and make them trying to feel comfortable.
There are literally, Russ, forensic interviews who do nothing but interview kids all day. This is their specialty, and that's what happened here. And again, these interviews apparently led to further allegations, and so New Mexican authorities decided to pursue this and decided to do this investigation. Now, Russ Busfield was interviewed. Timothy Busfield was interviewed about these allegations. It sounds like he was interviewed over the phone. They caught him on a phone call, and he denied the allegations, but he didn't help himself. And this is why we always tell people, like, even if you're innocent, even if you didn't do anything wrong, you really should be reluctant to talk to the police.
I think he said something about a tickle fight, if I'm remembering this correctly.
I've got statements right here. So first of all, there's several problems with making statements over the phone. Can you get those suppressed, Russ?
No, there's no custody, so cops don't have to Mirandize you.
They're taking your confession over the phone. They don't have to give you anything about Miranda.
Whatever you say comes into evidence.
That's right. So here, during this phone call, here are some of the statements that he made, and I'm quoting. He was asked by the police, was there a protocol for touching children on set? And this is his response. It's not allowed at all. No, so there's no protocol. I mean, I'm always around people. It would be in front of the parents. There would never be a weird moment about it. I don't remember picking those boys up. Actually, I remember picking up a boy who followed them. I'd pick him up, he'd be giggling, and I'd be getting him sort of ready to act. So, he's acknowledging some interactions here, but he doesn't really come out and say anything. So, but he did sit down for an interview and did make statements. And, he told the police that he was close with the families of these boys, that talked about the Christmas gifts, all that stuff. So he made some statements, and anyway, the New Mexican authorities decided that was enough. So they put out a warrant for his arrest. Russ, that happened on January 9th.
And these boys are 7 and 8 years old, is that
correct? They were
correct?
7 and 8 at the time. Doing a little smooth math here, that would put them at maybe 10 and 11 at this point.
Okay, sounds rough. Sounds like rough math.
So anyway, this is kind of interesting, Russ. I mean, this is a high-profile guy. Again, B-, C+. Out there though, you're going to see this guy. Like, I know that guy from somewhere.
I'm saying he's a B.
So the warrant gets issued January 9th. He does not turn himself in right away. Russ. How many days go by before he turns himself in?
I think it's going to be, just off the top of my head, 13. Is the answer 13?
4.
Shoot. I got it wrong.
I tried to cheat for you, and you did the right thing. He turned himself on the 13th. So the warrant was...
I knew I saw 13.
So the warrant had been active for 4 days, but the U.S. Marshals Service, they're the ones who go out looking for people who are on the run. They actually broke down his front door with a battering ram, Russ. I mean, they were looking for this guy. He was apparently driving from New York to New Mexico, and he turned himself in on the 13th, but he drove from New Mexico to from New York to New Mexico.
Well,
that's what taken a few days.
And that makes sense, because if he had tried to get on a plane to go from New York to New Mexico, he would have gotten picked up, and then he would have gotten put on a short bus. And that bus just drives all over the country, picking up anyone else who's in custody.
He might get there in like 3 or 4 weeks.
Right.
So he probably actually did the right thing, because he probably wasn't able to fly, and he turned himself in. So Russ, he is not released though. They had an initial bond hearing, and the judge said, no, you're staying in custody.
No bond hold.
Yeah.
So the things that go into that are you a flight risk, and are you a risk to the community, right? So it was 4 days, but he turned himself in. So like the fact that he turned himself in, it undercuts that flight risk, right? You don't turn yourself in if you're a flight risk.
He's a famous person. That makes him less of a flight risk.
Yes.
I mean, just the fact that he is pretty recognizable, that helps him.
B-, right? Helps him.
Exactly. If he were a D-lister, we'd have problems.
Right.
But, it is an interesting decision because certainly the judge has the power, and the judge can also change her mind. I think he's got a hearing in 5 days,
And
so
I think the judge said that she might reconsider.
Yeah, and there's a lot of things that they can do. They can place a GPS tracker on him. They can require him to report to an officer. A lot of folks are released on bond for these allegations.
They can require him to stay at home.
They can.
Yeah. So there's a lot of things they can do to mitigate that second prong, which is the risk of threat in the community.
Now, a couple other interesting nuggets that are going on with this case, Russ. So first of all, Warner Brothers. I want to talk about their involvement because Warner Brothers produced this show that we were talking about, The Cleaning Lady.
Yeah.
And they get tipped off, Russ, in late 2024 about that there's an anonymous tip that comes in through the Screen Actors Guild, like there's some sort of hotline you can call up to report abuse on a set.
It's like the Screen Actors version of Safe to Tell.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, I know you're joking, but that's exactly apparently what I didn't know that existed either. But
when did that come in?
That happened in late 2024, and it was an anonymous tip basically saying Timothy Busfield is acting inappropriately with kids. Okay. And so this was enough for Warner Brothers to launch their own investigation into this, which apparently they did. Now, we don't have a lot of information about that investigation. I can tell you the feds were very, very interested in that investigation and are trying to get records of any interviews that were conducted. So far, Warner Brothers has stymied them and has not provided a lot of that information. They have put out a statement, though, Russ, which is interesting. This is from Christina McGovern of Solomon Law, which is the law firm that was apparently commissioned to investigate this. Okay. This is a quote. Based on what was alleged and all evidence gathered, including multiple witness statements, I found no corroborating evidence that Mr. Busfield engaged in inappropriate conduct or that he was ever alone with accusers on set. Boy, that's a pretty bold statement, that he was ever alone with them.
Yeah.
So that's what they're saying. Now, Russ, what do we think about Warner Brothers in this independent investigation, and what's behind it?
So here's what we know. We know that this is a successful show. We know it's re-upped for 4 seasons. So Warner Brothers is probably making some money off this show.
Yes.
I would think that if the executive producer, starring actor, and director is suddenly hauled away in handcuffs, the show's probably not gonna make as much money for Warner Brothers.
That's what we might call a bad look for for Warner Brothers, right?
Right.
But let me ask you this: are they doubling down with bad look stuff when they put out a statement saying, "Oh yeah, nothing to see here. We did our own investigation. Don't worry about those police people.
Yeah.
We did our own thing. We didn't find anything." I got to be honest with you. I'm unclear whether or not they had any access to these accusers. I can't imagine that the parents made these people available for a Warner Brothers investigation.
Yeah. I mean, time will tell, right? We'll have to see how thorough this investigation actually was.
Yeah.
The fact that Warner Brothers is trying to stymie the police from getting these reports, it's going to take a warrant signed by a judge served on them to produce it. Yeah, and they're going to produce it.
Yeah. When I say stymie, it appears that the law enforcement's reached out to this law firm, and the law firm is kind of stalling on releasing this information. Okay. But they've had access to it for months.
It's gonna come out.
This is an investigation that's been going on for over a year. So anyway, that's one other thing. The other thing that's interesting, Russ, that I want to talk about that people might enjoy, he took a polygraph test, Russ. According to his attorney, Timothy Busfield's attorney, he sat down for a polygraph on the issues presented in this case and successfully passed. Now, what do we want to tell our listeners about polygraph tests? In terms of their admissibility in court, their reliance on prosecutors, prosecutors' reliance on polygraphs.
So they're not admissible in court. They're not deemed to be reliable enough to be admissible in court. So this would not come in a trial. Prosecutors do sometimes use them. What we know about polygraphs, defense attorneys sometimes use them. What we know about polygraphs is that they are highly dependent on the question asked and how the question is asked. So, it's certainly evidence that maybe he's innocent, right? Maybe he didn't do it. It's by no means foolproof, but it's something where prosecutors generally will consider that, but anytime they consider it, they will almost universally require the test to be done by their polygrapher.
That's right. And Russ, one thing that I think is overlooked by a lot of people when they think about a polygraph, what is a polygraph at its most basic form? It is an interview, Russ.
Yeah.
This is where
Yeah,
the offender is
true.
being asked questions about what happened. And like you just said, normally, if in my experience, I should say, if law enforcement is going to consider the results of a polygraph, they're always going to want to use their own team. They're always going
Right.
to want to use their own polygrapher. And I'll tell you, that usually requires the defendant to sign away certain rights. You're signing away your right to remain silent, because
Right.
if you just sit down for a polygraph, you're essentially agreeing to answer all questions related to the investigation. It's very risky. There's some nuance to it. So I don't really put a lot of stock in it either way. I don't doubt that he might have taken a polygraph and passed, but like you said, it's going to matter who conducted the interview, what questions were asked, and that's something that we might learn more about later as we go. So just an interesting side note.
See, it's interesting. The last thing that I'll say is apparently the West Wing, any reruns, they have pulled episodes that he was in. And, this is something where, despite the terrible nature of the charges, there's still charges, right? He still enjoys...
He's innocent until proven guilty.
Yeah, he's innocent until proven guilty. And I always, look at it when things like that happen, when people get fired, when charges... I'll tell you, I had a case where I was defending a CEO of a corporation, and he was accused of a domestic violence case, and we got the case completely dismissed because, in my opinion, it was completely unbelievable. I was surprised he was charged. He still lost his job. He lost his job even though it ended with a dismissal and with it being sealed. Mm-hmm. So I don't really have anything more to say on that except just commenting on how the public and how people just react immediately. We don't know any details about the allegation. And maybe it's all justified. Maybe he's going to be found guilty, and maybe he's the worst guy in the world, but we don't know that yet.
I think it's easy PR for those companies to do.
Yeah.
Oh, well, in the wake of these troubling allegations, we're going to temporarily pull, those episodes. It's just easy it's too easy for them to do it, and frankly, go the other way. Oh, we're going to keep airing this stuff. Right. We're going to keep putting it out there. That might...
No one's on the other side hollering. Right. Yeah.
Exactly. But I hear your point. He's innocent until proven guilty, and these are allegations. So yeah, I get it. They better not pull Field of Dreams. That's all I can say.
Yeah, right.
If they pull that from Netflix, I'm leaving. I'm out.
You're out.
I'm out of there.
Leaving the country. See you in Canada, McCallin.
Oh man! All right. Well, that's. I think that's enough true crime talk. Probably time for something silly, something stupid. Russ, what do you think? Is it time? Is it time for a dumb criminal?
It is. It is time for D-O-T-W, the dumb criminal of the week.
Russ, your turn.
Thanks for sticking around for everyone's favorite segment.
I think this is the reason they're here. I think we have to apologize. Sorry about all that filler we had at the beginning of the show. We know what you're really here for.
Sorry for wasting your time for however long that was. All right, Colin, today we are heading to Willoughby, Ohio for our latest DCOTW.
That already sounds dumb.
It's fun to say Willoughby.
Willoughby. Mr. Willoughby.
Willoughby, Ohio.
Willoughby. Sounds like a British butler.
A little bit, yeah.
Willoughby, I'd like my caviar, please.
It does. We're going to a guy named James Blankenship.
Oh, he sounds like a British butler, too.
A little bit.
Mr. Blankenship
from Willoughby. Well, old Jimmy Blankenship, he didn't have the best relationship with his mother, Colin. And in fact, she kind of kicked him out of her house about 3 months prior to the date of this dumb criminal action. That didn't stop old Jimbo from trying to break into his mom's house to rob it, though. So his mom spots him one afternoon trying to break in through a first-floor window. He sees that he's fingered, and he makes a run for it.
He's trying to break into his mom's house?
Yes, where he had lived up until 3 months ago. Although he didn't have any of his personal property in there, so there's no argument he was going to collect something. He was definitely going to rob his mom.
If you can't break into your mom's house,
Whose
what can
house-
you break
whose
into?
house can you break into?
My goodness.
I feel for you, old Jimmy. So a neighbor saw him running through a yard. Police found him hiding in a crawl space nearby. When apprehended, the Jiminator was stunned because he didn't think it was possible to be arrested for burglary during the day. I mean, come on. That's right, Colin. This guy thought he couldn't be arrested for burglary because it wasn't nighttime. I mean, this was the middle of the afternoon, for Christ's sakes.
Oh, so I think I know where this comes from. So we remember this probably when we were studying for the bar exam. But the common law definition of burglary required the crime to be at night. You could not, in the British common law, you could never have a daytime burglary. So the law school testers would have a field day with you and say, okay, Jimmy breaks into a house and takes all this stuff. Is he guilty of burglary? No, because we never said it was at night.
I mean, now we know. Of course, the British butler is familiar with British common law. So that it's all coming together. Oh, Jimmy, you may have just lost a knucklehead at the end of this for being so learned.
Well, Russ, I guess you could say that the reality has dawned on him now.
I mean, Colin, I'm just hoping that he eventually sees the light. So Jim was sentenced to 180 days in prison for this and fined $100, which is a really low fine.
Well, I actually think that's ridiculous.
You're
jail's
piling
fine.
on.
Yeah, you're piling on. You're gonna make the guy pay over a Benjamin as well? Like, come on. One or the other, Judge. 6 months in jail or a Benjamin. Give him a choice.
Maybe if he got away with some loot, he could pay the Benjamin.
They don't call them Benjamins in England, right? What do they call century?
You got me.
What do they even call?
It's pounds.
Well, they have the metric system over there, so like.
I don't know if the metric system applies to money. Four meters and a decimeter.
I meant I don't even know what I meant anymore. I meant like 100. What do they call 100? We call it century. 100. They probably don't. They probably call it 100. Like that. It's impossible. All right, that's enough silliness. What are we giving? Knuckleheads. That's pretty stupid.
I mean,
This is where we give knuckleheads 1 out of 5 knuckleheads. How stupid is this person? 5 being the worst. Oh. At least he broke into his mom's house, like it wasn't a stranger's house. I'll shave off a point for that.
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to shave off half a point for that because, you can, he may have been banking on his mom not pressing charges. Like, come on. But I'm also adding half a point back.
How about his mom? What a cold-hearted...
Just off you go, Jimmy. You were out.
He needed to learn his lesson.
Got it right. You can't coddle.
Yeah, actually, she's a good mom. She wants her son to learn a life lesson.
Colin, spare the rod, spoil the child.
There you go.
So I'm giving him 4.
All right,
4. One off for him being learned in British common law.
Yeah, 4 sounds good. I also like his name. Actually, 3 because I like his name.
Yeah, all right.
Yeah, Blankenship.
7
Mr.
out of 10.
Blankenship.
Not terrible. Jim.
All right. Yeah, I feel like we had fun with that one. All right. Well, hey, it's great to be back. And look, we're back on point, guys. New year, new beginning, new energy. That's what I say. So we are on the lookout for new episodes. We're on the lookout for new Is This Legal topics. We're on the lookout for new DCOTWs.
Right.
So there's so many ways to get a hold of us. The easiest way is to send us a text. In your little podcast description, you can click on our link and just hit the send us a text button. That'll get right to us. You can leave us some feedback. You can email us directly at denvercrimelaw@gmail.com. We have a Facebook page. We have a Twitter page. We have other stuff too. It's pretty easy.
We have everything. Find us.
So find us, and we will see you next time right here. Right here. Back on Is This Legal?
Be safe, everyone.
Bye-bye.